Welcome to part 7 of this course, which is also the last part of the course for now. Let's start with obviously the quote of the day, which today is: appreciate what you have done so far, but never be satisfied with only with that. This is something that we should all kind of keep in our heads, really, and just to stay hungry and keep improving in the industries and spheres that we want to improve. So this last part I have actually named it extra 5 because I have provided 5 different examples of combinations of formulas, some of the most kind of frequently used combinations, really, and how they're used as well. And obviously some further guidance in terms of obviously examples and what else can be actually learned in terms of, like, the Excel formulas. Okay, the first formula here is the combination here is if error and VLOOKUP. This is something that I have discussed in previous parts of the course as well. I have given an example there, but I wanted to make sure that it is clear enough for you as well. So that's why I've kind of obviously put it here in this section. So what it does, it basically ensures that a specific value is returned if an error occurs in the VLOOKUP formula. Okay, and this is the structure of the formula. You have the VLOOKUP part here. Okay, and in case obviously that this part returns an error, this second part will actually activate, and this is going to be the outcome that we're going to receive. Okay, now to give you an example of that, I will show you this. Okay, now what we have here is we have two arrays here. Okay, name and age. Okay, and now we are going to try and find the age for the people in this array. Okay, and we can do that by using the if error VLOOKUP combination. So this is how you type it, of course, and now we need to select obviously E4, which is obviously our first name, and now we need to select obviously the range. I am going to fix that range using the dollar signs with F4, and we want to return values from column 2. Okay, exact values. And now in case that there is an error in the VLOOKUP part of the formula, we will ensure that let's say a specific outcome is actually shown in that case. So we can just put not found. Okay, now I have used comma instead of semicolon, so that's why I need to change it. But this is what we get. Okay, so Ken is obviously 44, so you can see here that that is correct. Okay, now if we just copy all these copy the formula to the cells here, you can see that Bob, Richard and Greg cannot be actually found within here, and therefore that's the VLOOKUP part of the formula has come up with a mistake, with an error here, and the second part of our formula has been activated, which is obviously this thing here, and that's why we get the result not found. I really hope that this formula is clear enough for you, and again I'm going to say that if error is can be used, of course, with a number of formulas really, but I have decided to give you an example with VLOOKUP because obviously VLOOKUP is another formula that is among the most frequently used in Excel. Okay, going back to the presentation, the second combination of formulas that we have is we have let's say 2 to 3 formulas: left, len and find. Okay, now I'm going to show you first of all a combination of the first 2 formulas. Okay, and then we will discuss the obviously last part of this formula as well. Okay, so what this does is it allows you it allows basically for a specific number, usually different number in various cells, of characters to be returned. Okay, so let me give you an example to see what I mean here. So the example is here, and I have put that as left and len example. So if you remember, the left function ensures that, let's say, a specific number of characters from left to right is actually shown as a result. But again, we have the length function, and the length function is actually it gives you the length of let's say a specific range, okay, which in this case is this range here. What day is it today? Okay, now let me show you an example of this as well. Now we can type in left, and now we can select this, and in order for us to decide how many, let's say, characters we need to obviously extract or to show, we can use the len function, okay, which is used in this so obviously in this way, okay, and then we can say let's say minus 5. Okay, now what we are going to get here is let me just change the comma with semicolon, and what we're going to get here is an extraction of the first range, and the last word here in the range has been obviously missed, has been skipped, because obviously that's what this part does. So it ensures that only all characters or all positions of this in this range up to the last 5 characters are returned. Okay, and that's why you have what day is it instead of what day is it today. Okay, now another way we can use this is obviously by adding the find formula. Okay, now what we can do is we can start typing this thing again, left, okay, and now we can just use this range again. Now we need to find the length of the formula of the range again. Okay, we do this, and then we can, instead of like specifying let's say a hard number, let's say as in our previous example it was 5, we can use the find formula, and we can just try and find, let's say D in this case. Okay, now we are going to find that within here. Okay, and we are going to start at position 1 as well. So now we close all the brackets here, and what we are going to get is this. Okay, so you can see that the result is actually the same. Okay, now why is that? So first of all, we have length here. Okay, now the length of the of this range here is we have to count, of course, but let's say a specific number. Now what we can do is we can actually go to the find part of the formula, because here we can see clearly that D is actually in position 6. Okay, and now we have the length of this whole range minus 6 instead of 5. Okay, so the only difference between obviously this one and this one is that here we have the empty space as well. So this empty space has been included. Okay, whereas here we don't have the empty space that has been obviously included within the first example. Okay, now you can use obviously instead of left you can use right, you can use mid as well. So all these functions we have discussed them already. Okay, but I have decided to use the left here to just show you the example with left because it is one of the most frequently used examples and formulas in Excel when it comes to text, of course. Okay, now going back to the presentation, we have the third combination of formulas, which is number, value and left. Okay, so this combination ensures that the return value is in a number format. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Okay, I'll show you in a little bit with the example. Okay, so suppose we have a number here. Okay, and this number is obviously, let's say, in number format. Okay, now if I just use left, just the left formula, and I want to get the first 4 characters, let's say this is going to be again semicolon instead of comma. This is going to be 0411. Okay, but this is actually formatted as text. Okay, it's not formatted as a number. So in this case, in order to make sure that the outcome is actually a number instead of a text, we use the number value formula here together with left. Okay, and we just go select that and again 4, and we close the brackets. So you can see now this is on the right. Why is that on the right of the cell? Because the number formatted values are always on the right, whereas for example the text formatted values are on the left, and you can see the difference here between obviously the first example and the second example. Okay, now let's go back to the presentation. Again, I have used the left function, but obviously the right function, mid function, they can be used as well. Okay, in this example, so the next formula, the next combination of formulas is if together with and or. So again, these are logical functions. Okay, and what they do is that they ensure that a specific value, that obviously this combination of formulas returns a specific value only when all conditions are true, or at least one condition is true, depending on whether we use and or. Okay, so let me give you an example here as well. So it's a very interesting example. So what we have here is let's say we have expected, let's say, delivery for a specific, let's say, item. So we have the item number range here, the delivery date range here, the quantity range is here as well, and the criteria now are to find we need to find basically the volumes, the delivery volumes, the quantities for item 245, and the date is 1st of March 2019. Okay, now the way we do that is we can use this if together with and. So if I use and here, okay, now this assumes that obviously in order for the end part of the formula to be true, okay, we need to ensure that both operations that we're going to use here are true as well. Okay, so this basically suggests that we need to ensure that this should be equal to this. So okay, now let me just make it fixed as well. Okay, and now the second operation is going to be that the date is equal to the specified date in the criteria range. Okay, now Now, in case that the end function is or the end part of the formula returns true, okay, we want the result column to show, let's say, the quantity, okay, and instead of the comma we use the semicolon again. So this is what we do, okay. Otherwise, just we need just to show empty space, for example. Okay, now let's try and see how the formula works. Okay, so now we get 24, okay, for the first example. As you can see, we have 3 cells that are obviously left empty, okay, and there are only 2 cells with numbers or quantities, okay. Why is that? Because based on the conditions that we inserted, okay, this number here, this item number, is equal to the condition here, okay, and obviously the delivery date here is equal to this delivery date that we inserted as condition, and the same goes for obviously this row as well, okay. So that's why we only have values in these 2 cells, right. You can use OR as well, obviously in different scenarios again, but this is obviously the method or the logic behind using a combination of if and or if and and, okay. Going back to the presentation, the next combination of formulas is VLOOKUP and indirect. Indirect was discussed in part 6 of this course, and basically it ensures that a correct or a valid reference is actually put within a formula, for example, okay. Now, what does the VLOOKUP and indirect combination do? It ensures that the sheet reference in the lookup range is typed in a way that will not bring a reference mistake here. This is usually the mistake that obviously comes up when something within the lookup range for the VLOOKUP part has, let's say, been deleted. That's obviously when you don't use indirect, okay. And this is the structure, okay. The indirect goes here, okay, within the lookup part of the lookup range part of the formula, okay. And now let me give you an example to show you what I mean, okay. So as you can see, I have 2 tabs here. The first is obviously called extra, the second one is called sheet 1, and sheet 1, the name of the tab has obviously been added here in this cell as well, okay. Now in sheet 1 we have obviously like 2 columns of data, okay. We have the retailers and we have their, let's say, turnover for a month, for example, okay. Now going back to the extra tab, what we're trying to do here, we will try to get the turnover for the different retailers. The way to do that is obviously by using VLOOKUP, and obviously we start with the lookup value, and this is the lookup value, okay. Now in the lookup range part of the formula we will insert indirect, okay. Now how do we do this? Okay, first of all we need to select T4, okay, where obviously the sheet name is actually inserted, for sheet 1, and after that we do this, we insert and then we go with a quote, okay. We need an exclamation mark, and now we need obviously a range. What is our range going to be? We can also just put, let's say, C1 to D100, because obviously our data is in columns C and D in the sheet 1 tab, okay. And now we need to close the quotes, okay, and just close the bracket for the indirect part, okay. Now we need to return information from column 2 from the lookup range, and we need exact match, okay. So let's see what we're going to get here. Okay, and as you can see, we get 1000 here for Tesco. Let's check whether the result is correct. The result is correct, as you can see. Okay, now we can do that for the rest of the retailers as well, but before that we need to make sure that the range is actually fixed with dollar signs. Okay, now what we can do is put dollar signs for the range here as well, just by copying, for example, or just using F4. And here we need to make sure that this is fixed as well. Okay, now the end result is going to be now this. Okay, now we managed to get the turnover for all the retailers here, okay, using the indirect reference instead of just purely using a normal reference, which is actually open to mistakes. And once mistakes happen within obviously the lookup range part of the formula, we will have obviously an error for the whole formula. Right, this is the last combination of formulas that we have. I really hope that you enjoyed the course as much as I did, and I wanted to thank you for signing up for this course, and hopefully I have provided you with a good foundation in terms of the Excel formulas, and hopefully they're going to help you in your future endeavors. Before saying goodbye though, I would like to again leave you with my most favorite quote: repetition is the mother of learning, and to say that if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me using the comment section of the course. Thank you and goodbye.